Hello, good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
We have about 170 people registered today, so we're expecting about 60, and we'll just give another minute or two for people to join. In the meantime, if you can all just remember to keep your microphones turned off. We'll also come through every once in a while if somebody forgets. It's very good to see so many of you. Shall we begin, Gabriela?
I think we can start.
Welcome, dear midwives, dear colleagues. My name is Daniela Drendich, and I'm Head of Advocacy and Communications at the International Confederation of Midwives. Thank you for joining us today at this workshop that is being organized and hosted by our consultants that are working with us on advocacy for the updates to the European Union Directive on Professional Qualifications for midwives. And that's Gabriele Sorce, Education and Policy Manager at the Good Lobby from Brussels. I'm very pleased to have so many of you here. There was a lot of interest for this workshop, and there's been a lot of interest for the updates to the EU directive over the last few months. And I hope that today we'll be able to answer many of your questions. But before doing that, really give you a good insight into what the process looks like. European Union processes are often bureaucratic, hard to understand, and happen far away in a little city called Brussels. But they really do affect the daily lives of all of us, and they affect the profession of midwifery. So it's very important that we engage with them. And there's a role for each of you in the engagement at the national and country level. The EU directives affect the 27 countries of the European Union, but also the 3 countries that make up the European Economic Area, as well as Switzerland. They affect the accession countries, or the countries that are in process of trying to join the European Union, but they also affect all the countries that look to the directive of the European Union for inspiration on their own regulatory and education processes. The European Union was a pioneer in this area, and the first standardization of midwifery education happened very long ago in 1981. Since then, there have been a number of updates, and this is the newest one, but what we're looking at doing is really making sure that this new update reflects all the technological and scientific advances that have happened in the field of midwifery. So I will pass on the baton to Gabriele and invite you to participate in the question section that's going to happen throughout the workshop today, but especially at the end. Gabriele, go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Daniela, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. As Daniela said, I am Gabriele, working at the Good Lobby, and we are currently and happily helping the International Confederation of Midwives to try and see how we can get our way, right? And get what we need in the next update of the EU Professional Qualifications Directive. I have prepared a presentation which should be about an hour long. What I wanted to cover today was, of course, the current landscape of the EU Professional Qualifications Directive to make sure you understand what it entails, what are the strategic objectives and the planned actions that we developed with Daniela in the last few months, starting from January. What are our expectations on the roles of national members? And then we will go to an interactive questions and answers session in which you can ask all the questions that you want to make sure that you understand everything. I like this to be very interactive. So if there are any questions at any moment, please feel free to use the raise your hand button or to open your microphone and to put your question in the chat. Daniela will read it. We'll make sure that I see it, even if I'm presenting, and to reply to your question in due time. Without any further ado, Daniela, I think we can start. And again, this might come very dense and complicated. It might be all new content and information for you. So if you feel like I am going too fast, please make sure to tell me you're going too fast, slow down. If you think something else should be further clarified, make sure to tell me. This is very open. We are organizing this for you. We want to make sure that we all come out of this meeting with a fresher and bigger understanding of what's happening around the Professional Qualifications Directive and the midwives. All right? Okay, cool. Let's start with an introduction. Our objectives of today, again, it is for you to make sure that you understand what is the EU Directive review process. I think it might be new for most of you, although it's very nice to see such a diverse audience. We have people coming from academia, people coming directly from applied situations. So I understand that there is perhaps not so much expertise in EU policy processes. So if you think it's too much or it's too complicated, just tell me. I will be happy to adapt during the presentation. So I will also briefly touch on how the European Commission is envisioning this update and the timeline, the decision-making framework of the directive. I will touch on the strategic goals of the International Confederation of Midwives for 2025 and 2026 to make sure that we all understand what are our strategic objectives and to understand this multi-layered approach that we need to take at the European level and at the national level. We will then briefly go to your role as national members, and we will then make sure to have this interactive session to foster engagement, collaboration, and understanding of our role in the directive update. So let's dive straight into the Directive 2005/36 EC, which is called Professional Qualifications Directive. So what is that? This directive is a legislation from the European Union which governs the recognition of professional qualifications among different member states of the European Union and members of the European Economic Area. This means that, talking from a legal standpoint, this directive is the highest source of law that you have in the European Union to discipline professional qualifications across different member states. And its aim is to facilitate the free movement of healthcare professionals among across the EU member states. What does it mean? It means that the directive aims to allow any worker in the healthcare sector and also other sectors that are not relevant for us in the directive to work in other European Union or European Economic Area countries. It means that if I am Italian, but tomorrow I want to go and work in Croatia, I should have the rights to go and work in Croatia because we are all part of the same state, which is the European Union. What this directive does, in a nutshell, is empowering the Commission to map, understand, and put into writing what are the minimum training requirements for these regulated professions, and they can modify this through delegated acts, which is the process that will take place with the updates, and I will explain it to you in a few moments. But basically, what happens with this directive, with this piece of law, is that there is a so-called expiry date. As you can see from the formal name of the directive was created in 2005, so 20 years ago. But of course, with the flow of time, when the years pass, with scientific advancements, with technical advancements, there's a need to check that this piece of law is still fit for purpose, right? So that's the right that the Commission reserved to itself via delegated acts, meaning when the expiry date of the directive is met, the Commission can come together, plan an update, check with stakeholders, which is you, which is member states, which is healthcare professionals, whether the directive is still good or whether it needs an update. There already have been a series of updates in the Professional Qualifications Directive, notably last year's nurses and dental practitioners and pharmacists were updated in 2023-2024. However, we found out that up to date, there is no planned update for the midwives. And we will see what this implies and why it is important that also the part on midwives will be updated by the Commission. Yes, what's the impact of that? Well, the impact is that, of course, there will be inconsistent training standards across EU member states, meaning that perhaps with latest advancements, there are some countries that are a little bit more advanced in terms of trainings, while other countries might be lagging behind and are not up to date to the latest developments. This can consequently bring negative impacts on sexual reproductive rights, maternal rights, newborn health outcomes, and also workforce sustainability, right? Because if the latest advancements are not reflected in the highest piece of law that you have at the European Union level, this is actually not good. The impact is that, of course, we now need to make sure that the Commission understands that this is an urgency, that midwives exist, that midwives perform a key role, and that based on that, midwives also have a right to be represented at this high political arena, to make sure that what they do is recognized and that what they do reflects the needs and necessity not only of the midwives, but also of in general, all the healthcare professionals that are working around these important topics. Yes. So to step back a little bit, I was talking about delegated acts. I want to pause a little bit just to start making it just a little bit interactive. Can you please put in the chat how many of you understand how the European Union works in terms of lawmaking? Do you know how laws are made at the European Union level? Feel free to write yes, no, I understand a bit, I don't understand completely nothing, just to make sure that I adapt myself.
No,
Yes,
we don't
Daniela.
know. We don't know how the law is being made.
Okay, not really, no, yes, I understand. Nottingham, which is no, and then Tingham, or it's the city. No
I think it was an
idea.
autocorrect. That was an
All
autocorrect.
right. Okay. A little understanding, not really, just an idea. Okay. Okay. So let's step back for a second, right? How are laws at the European Union level made? Just consider the European Union being a bicameral parliament, right? So you have a lower chamber, which is the Chamber of Deputies, which is the European Parliament, and you have a higher chamber, right? Like the Senate, so to speak. For instance, in Italy, this is exactly the same system. In the Netherlands, there is the same system. It's very common in Europe, okay? So this means that you also have a Council of Ministers, which is, let's say, a government, which is the European Commission. What happens is that based on the needs and competences of the European Commission, those competences being given to the Commission by the European Union treaties, the Commission puts forward a law proposal. Okay, let's take the example that we have right now, Professional Qualifications Directive. So the needs the Commission says is for internal market purposes, for competition purposes, we need to have a law that makes sure that all workers in the European Union are able to work in all the European Union territory. So as I said, if I am an healthcare professional in Italy and I want to search for different working conditions, I don't know, let's say in Sweden, I should be allowed to do so. There is no law, so me, the European Commission, being the government, I provide this text to make sure to put forward a proposal that makes possible for workers of the European Union to work wherever they want in the European Union area and the European Economic Area, all right? So what happens then is that this text, when ready, usually the Commission publishes a white paper, which means it tells us the scope that this proposal is going to take, why they are doing this, what the potential effects could be. Then they usually consult different stakeholders, which in the case of professional qualifications might be all the people that are touched by the EU Professional Qualifications Directive. Then they complete a proposal and they send it to the European Parliament and to the Council, which is the Council. It's an institution that has inside all representatives of the European Union member states with different configurations. There are different councils, right? If we are working about professional qualifications, it takes the shape of a council on employment. Therefore, it is possible that all the employment ministers of all the EU member states will get together, right? So what happens there? It happens that the European Parliament starts discussing the text, starts compromising on the text, because of course, this is also a political process, right? We have all different political groups in the parliament representing Europe from left to right. And then we have the national perspective with the council, right? In which they say they bring the interests, the expertise of the member states and make sure that this balances this political process at the European Parliament level. What happens then is that the European Parliament reaches an agreement on the text, and then it gives this text to the Council. And then the European Parliament and the Council starts compromising on the text until they approve the text. And then we finally have the EU Professional Qualifications Directive, right? Well, as I said, this is a process that might look easy, but it's very granular. Just to be sure, it takes around 1.5 to 2 years to complete such a process, which is called, usually most of the bulk of the European Union legislation is realized through the ordinary legislative procedure. And as I said, it's a process that takes 1.5 to 2 years. After that, we have a text, right? We have the EU Professional Qualifications Directive. But what happens then? It happens what I said, that, for instance, in this case, we have a text which has an expiry date. At a certain point, the directive is maybe not good because it needs to reflect latest scientific and technical advancements, right? So as you can see, I put in the screen an excerpt, a part of the EU Professional Qualifications Directive, and it's circled, you see, Article 57C, which tells you the power to adopt delegated acts is conferred on the Commission subject to the conditions laid down in this article. What this means is that there are some technicalities, you know, some non-essential parts of the directive which will need to be updated. As these are not elements that have a political connotation, but rather a technical connotation, the member states said, all right, we can empower the Commission to do so, because the Commission is a technical body in nature. It's a neutral body. It's not a political body. We are talking about technicalities. So I will give the power to the Commission to consult stakeholder and check with them, you know, understand through them whether the directive is still fit for purpose. And as you can see from Article 58, the Commission does this through a committee procedure, which means there is a committee composed of experts coming from all the European Union member states, coming also from the states of the European Economic Area, and they come together and they have a thorough look at the directive, at the parts, of course, that are subject to the delegation of the Commission, and they start discussing through interaction with stakeholders what needs to be changed and what cannot be changed. So again, these are non-legislative acts in essence, which means they do not require a legislative process through the European Parliament or the Council. It's simply a process in which the Commission supplements, right? So changes or amends non-essential elements of a new legislative act. What this means, we made a couple slides that make you understand what essential is and what's non-essential is, right? So, and this is true in general for all sources of policies coming also at the member states level. What are essential elements of a law? Essential elements are, right, the first things you see in the first page. So is the general provisions telling you why are we doing that? With which principle are we doing that? According to what legal basis we are doing that? Then the scope, which means who is touched by this directive. Midwives, doctors, nurses, maybe not architects, maybe not engineers, because they will be touched by another law, right? All these important and fundamental details, those are decided already at the beginning of the legislative proposal when the Commission puts it forward. So to give you a technical definition, essential elements are the core principles, the objectives, the key policy choices. So why are there a directive and not another piece of law? The fundamental rights and obligations, and this can only be amended by the legislators, right? The Commission is not a legislator. It's a technical body. It's a neutral body. It's the government. The legislators, as I explained before, are the European Parliament and the Council. Again, examples of this will be, as you can see, for instance, Article 1 of the directive, Article 2, so which could contain the rights that professionals have at the European Union level as workers, the list of professions, as I said, that are covered by this piece of law, the creation, so the legal framework, the governing framework of the directive. So the fact, for instance, that any further update at the technical level will be realized through a committee on professional qualifications, right? These things are decided at the beginning by the legislator and are things that can only be changed by the legislator itself, not from the Commission. Exactly, as you say, Perrin, it's very similar in your republic, right? It's more or less the same. What is now non-essential? Non-essential elements, as I've been saying, are, you know, technicalities, right? As you can see, I have put there an excerpt of the directive. With the yellow circle, you can see Annex 5, right? What is this annex? This annex basically encloses lists of all, for instance, the subjects that doctors need to take at university to make sure that they reflect the minimum training standards at the European level. So meaning that if I am studying in Croatia, and I then want to go to Spain to be a dentist, people in Spain are sure that I am prepared and that, my training reflects the latest and highest technical standards of my profession, because the commission amends this annex on a 5 years basis, on a 10 years basis, to make sure that if there are any other developments, any new developments, all the member states recognized these developments and make sure that their personnel, the people that they are training in these professions, have also been through these new updates, right? So these are non-essential elements because they don't change anything at the political level. They do not introduce any new professions inside the directive. They do not enlarge the scope by saying, for instance, together with countries of the European Economic Area, we will also have, I don't know, country from North Africa. So all these things needs to be decided by the legislator, not by the European Commission. So again, to give you a definition, non-essential elements are technical or detailed provisions that supplement or update the directive without altering its fundamental character. It means that the directive stays the same. It still is the EU Professional Qualifications Directive. But now, for instance, in the annex governing midwives and your minimum standard of trainings, instead of saying midwives will have a 4 months trainings, the Commission saw that through new technical scientific advancements, perhaps you now need 6 months of trainings and 2 new subjects. These 2 new subjects, they are not coming from the sky, right? It means that latest technical and scientific advancements have made sure that, have shown that these 2 additional months, these 2 additional subjects are required. The commission meets the stakeholders. It meets Gabriele, it meets Daniela, it meets doctors, it meets people from academia, and they all confirm to the commission, yes, this is actually correct, this is what it should be, and the commission then goes together with the Committee on Professional Qualifications, and they, through delegated acts, because the legislators, are delegating the commission to take on this role, then the commission amends or supplements these non-essential technical elements, right? So what are we talking about here? Again, to make you an example, as you can see below, bottom left of the slide, the knowledge and skills requirements for each profession. So as I just said, maybe a change in the training curriculum, the content of the various annexes, for instance, Annex 5, which is the one where the midwives, their training is enlisted, latest updates to reflect scientific and technical progress, new training subjects, again, duration, perhaps 6 months instead of 4. So all those technical things that do not need politics to step in, right? But just technical. I want to pause a little bit here, like 2 seconds to check if there are any questions, although I think no, it comes in a bit. I see that there are some questions already by Thomas. Who decides if it is technical or political? Again, Thomas, this is something that you can see. This is how laws are made in general, right? Political is something that can politically create conflict or discussion, right? So, for instance, I'm a politician that wants midwives to be included in this directive, while you are a politician that says, no, I think that midwives should not be touched by this law. I think that we should only talk about doctors, cardiologists, podologists, or what have you, but not midwives. So it's basically the law itself, in a way, the way it is made, that decides what is political or technical, right? So political, it's something again that creates conflict. So it can be the scope of the directive, the general principles, the legal basis. So why are we making a law in this regard? Why is it necessary, right? So the general provisions, all these things are political, while technical, it's technicalities, the length of something, I don't know, the curriculum of something. So those are all technical things because they are subject to change, right? It's very easy that if I studied political science in 2015 and I graduated in 2018, perhaps if I go back now to my university and I check my curriculum, it will not be the same. It will be different because it's a technical thing, because time passes, new things are introduced. So those technicalities needs to be updated and reflected in new curriculum. So this is how they make the difference between technical versus political.
There's some questions in the chat, perhaps, Gabriela, that we can have a look at.
Okay, so Josephine makes a question which is very important. So who are the advisors for the technical aspects? How are they identified? How do people get involved? To come back, let's say here, as you can see, the articles clearly say that the Commission, to realize this, to have this delegated power, will be helped by a Committee on Professional Qualifications. So at the moment in which this directive was made, also a permanent Committee on Professional Qualifications was created. What is that? This is a committee that is made of experts coming from all the different European member states plus European Economic Area. In this case, it is Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. And they are, technicians. They are people working in the ministries. They are bureaucrats. They are people that are dealing with these topics on a daily basis. And their job is basically to inform this process and also to make sure that, since the European Union is a complicated beast, right? Because we have this almost pure transnational level, which is the European Parliament, where, yes, politicians are coming from the member states, but are, de facto and de jure members of the European Parliament. This means that when you go in the European Parliament and you join a political group, this is now what you're taking care of. If I am from the Italian Democratic Party and I go to the European Parliament and I'm now a member of the Socialists and Democrats, my main concern is the position of Socialists and Democrats rather than the Italian Democratic Party. So on an ideal level, it means that I'm a European politician. The Council, though, as I said, it brings together ministers and people from the member states, which means it is a new layer of complexity. It means it makes sure that also the member state perspective is incorporated with the European perspective and everything goes smooth, right? So there's an agreement on all levels. So to facilitate this exercise of delegation, this is kind of what they are doing with these expert committees. We have experts coming from the member states, which means that if the expert from Italy, if the expert from France, if the expert from Sweden is coming there, sitting with us in this committee and makes an observation, it means that at the member state level, that's what the member state thinks. So it makes things easier. It makes easier to understand what this member state wants, what can be done, and what cannot be done. So these are technical people coming from the ministries. And in terms of how they are identified, this is a bit of a problem. It's very difficult to understand who these people are because there is no list of names in the website of the Commission. And this is why we ran the survey with you, right? The idea was on our side to have your help to understand, to identify who these people can be. And thanks to your help, which was great, by the way, I still hadn't had the chance to thank you for taking the time to reply to our survey. We made sure to at least understand from which ministry, from which agency, from which unit these people might come, right? And this will inform our subsequent step, which you will see in a bit. Yes, to reply to Jackie Williams, Norway is not a member of the European Union, but they are a member of the European Economic Area. As such, it means that they are also involved in the update of this directive. as Daniela had replied. Where are the relevant professionals in this respect specifically? Okay, so in terms of to reply to your question, Josephine, Daniela informed me on everything that happens before my involvement with your case. As you remember, some of you participated perhaps to some consultations through organized by Sparks Legal Consulting, which is the consulting firm that the Commission hired to conduct a study to make sure to consult you and relevant stakeholders to check whether there is a need to update, all relevant parts on midwives in this directive. So this is how you were consulted. At a broader level, if the Commission will decide to go through this update, there will still be more consultations. This means that stakeholders will be consulted again. This means that you will probably have the chance to be consulted again and to inform this process. But lucky for us, what our intention is now to do it all together. We will come to that later in the presentation when we explain what we are expecting from you at the national level. Yes, our idea is that you will be involved both at the national and European level. Yes, Daniela.
Yeah, just to say that Josephine brings up an interesting question. So is there like a set procedure of who's involved in these consultations? And the answer to that from our experience is yes and no. So in the first bit of the process, the European Commission took out a consultancy company and they created a methodology that the European Commission approved. So in that methodology, it says who they're going to consult and how. But there's no public consultation process in the sense that it's not like a public thing that anybody who wants to can participate in. Some associations were involved. I think the majority of national associations were involved because the consultancy company that the Commission brought in went and actively looked for them.
Thanks a lot, Daniela. Thank you. So just to go forward, what are we looking at more or less? I have made this slide that explains to you what a possible process will look like. So where are we right now? Right now are in step 0, so to say step 1, right? We reached out to Spark Legal Consulting, which is this consulting hired by the Commission to realize the study. Some of you were involved in the consultation. They told us that they will deliver the study to the European Commission in the coming weeks. After that, the aim of the Commission is to publish this study by the end of 2025. Our latest intel also tell us that the Committee on Professional Qualifications is meeting. They had a meeting in April in which they also discussed the state of play of the study on professional qualifications. The agenda item was titled Midwife Study. So they spoke about you. They are speaking about you. After that, what will happen? It happens that after this study is published, the Commission will start consulting member states to inform them about the outcomes of these studies, right? What did the study say? Do you think an update is needed? Do you think it's good like that? If yes, what should we amend? What should we supplement? Because again, what the Commission can change through delegated acts is not only the annex, but also, for instance, the part directly dedicated to midwives, which is Article 46 in the directive, which tells what is a midwife, what are the training requirements for midwives. So we do not know to date what the Commission will want to change. So this is step 2. The Commission will consult member states. They will check whether member states think that an update is needed. Is an update needed? Yes, for us it's a big yes. We will come to that later. After that, let's assume that member states say Yes, all right. We think that an update is needed. We've been having requests at the national level, which will then be thanks to you, thanks to your actions in the subsequent months. And they think that an update is needed. So what happens there? It happens that, again, the European Commission opens consultations in which our aim there is to establish the International Confederation of Midwives as the most trustful and informed voice that the Commission can rely on because of this wonderful and big network that the International Confederation of Midwives has, because of the knowledge and expertise that you bring, you inform to the International Confederation of Midwives. Our aim is that the Commission recognizes that we are basically the interlocutor that they should be consulting, because as midwives, as people on the ground every day, who better than us knows what's best for us, right?
Yeah, just to say, to add to that, it's about working together with the European Midwives Association and the European EFNMA, the European Network of Nursing and Midwifery, National Nursing and Midwifery. Sorry, my brain has frozen. EFNMA, you all know who that is. But the reason that ICM is being put forward here as let's say like the expert is because of the standards that we set, and we're putting forward the ICM essential competencies as the standard to which the EU directive should base itself.
Thanks a lot, Daniela. And Nina, I don't think I understand your question. What content are you referring to? Hi, Victoria, and to reply briefly to your question, absolutely, our aim is to do this also together with the European Midwives Association, right? Our objective here is to make sure that we have one voice, which is the voice of midwives, and to have an engagement in two different levels, national levels, which will be done through you and the members, and the European level, which will be done through the International Confederation of Midwives and the European Midwives Association, as well as relevant stakeholders that want to come and be part of the process. So of course, this will be a purely inclusive process. Okay, I don't know what content Nina was referring to, but maybe we can go forward for the sake of time. Again, to go to step 3, so there are consultations, members are consulted, the Commission collects this input, and then this input is transmitted to the Committee on Professional Qualifications, which will basically draft the delegated acts. After that, what happens is that the Committee on Professional Qualifications will vote. We have a double vote there to make sure that there is a threshold on not only number of member states, but also on total population of the European Union. And if the acts are adopted, then the legislators, which are the European Parliament and the Council, they have 2 months to say, no, we think that this is not good. Although this is a very rare case, in principle, it should not be happening because, again, this committee is composed by experts coming from the member states. So all the process should already have happened also at the member state level, meaning that when these people go in these formats, they already have a clear mandate, they already know what they have to push for, and it's basically only the vote will then be basically a formality. Who are the key actors for every step? This is very important also for us to understand who we should be engaging. Step 1, I mean, of course, Spark Legal Consulting is a key actor. They run the consultations. They are deciding what will be in their recommendations, in their study. Of course, we should be aware of what they think, what's the focus they are privileging over something else. This is actually one of our concerns. One of our concerns was that this study was actually not reflecting what's according to the International Confederation of Midwives and according to you, the most important elements that should be updated in this piece of legislation. So we should really make sure to have a thorough read at the study once it's out and understands the position of Spark Legal Consulting and what they are telling the Commission. In terms of purely legislative angle, the key actor there is the Employment B5 Unit 1 of the European Commission. The European Commission, as I said, can be considered as the government of the European Union. It means that it is divided in ministries, so to speak, which in European Union jargon are called Directorates Generals. We are talking about Directorate General on Employment, or abbreviated DGEMP, and of course also the DG on Employment, as inside of it different units that are taking care of different aspects of employment policy at the European Union level. In our case, because we reached out to them a couple months ago and we identified the main unit, the relevant unit is the B5 Unit 1, which you can find online. There is an organigram if you're curious and want to have a look. If you want to know more about that, of course, you can send us an email and we can further elaborate on that. But for now, what is important for the purpose of this presentation is for us to understand who the main actors at the European Commission level is. Going to step 2, of course, the Commission consult member states. So the key actors, of course, are responsible ministries of all the member states, because they will be consulted by the Commission. They will basically tell them the outcomes of the study. They will ask an opinion, right? What do you think? Do you think this is good? Do you think the focus should be shifted somewhere else? Do you think we need to update? This is where you will come actually, you will step in member states' involvement. So the key actors there, again, are responsible member states, the experts that will be consulted by the Commission. We already know that they are holding bilateral meetings with some of the member states, and then the broader stakeholder landscape, right? This is our possibility to push a little bit once the study is published, while the Commission is consulting member states. Our intention is, of course, to go to the Commission with a coalition of organizations and tell them, hey, you know, we also read the study. We think we should also be talking. Step 3, the Commission open consultations, this time with different stakeholders. So, of course, the main stakeholder there is the B5 Unit 1 of DG Employment of the European Commission. Again, the broad stakeholder landscape, perhaps also Spark Legal Consulting, because they don't want their recommendations to be altered too much. Perhaps doctors that will be invited also to the consultations. All of us, experts, academics, there are a bunch of different actors that will be involved in this process. And of course, it is not known to date how broad these consultations will be. Daniela said something already regarding that, but we have no certainty. So this is yet to be discovered. Step 4, which should actually be the last step, the Committee on Professional Qualifications draft. Committee on Professional Qualifications, the European Parliament and the Council, to make sure they also push for what we are asking, to make sure that they will say yes to the outcome of the Committee on Professional Qualifications, and the Committee on Professional Qualifications itself, to make sure that they will put forward what we are asking, right? Because the objective here is to have our amendments presented to the Commission, to the member states, because we know best. We have the data from the ground, from you that are doing this every day, that know best what should be the legal framework around your job. So our aim is to make sure basically that the Commission takes on board what we are asking, because we were able to establish ourselves as a trustful actor and the Commission can trust us. Yes, Daniela.
Yeah, so maybe just to give a bit of an update, Gabriela, from your side about where we are right now. So we know that Spark Consulting, well, our information for those of us who were at the workshop in Brussels in October was that they would be submitting the report to the Commission by the end of the year. From your information, that still hasn't happened. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that and tell us a bit about the actual Commission's timeline and where we are with the directive?
Okay, so this is kind of a question mark right now, and after I will be brief, and after that I will give the floor to Victoria for a question. Because what is the
If
problem
I
there?
can interrupt here, because my information by email, by Spark, is that they have submitted to the EU Commission the consultation. So we are trying to find somebody that is responsible now for this specific, where is now this
Yes.
so I have an official reply after long time from Spark the previous week that they have submitted, and there are 3 people that were involved in this Spark legal consulting is not anymore employees of Spark. So this is why, yes, they said that they are not. So the only one from the people that were in the Brussels workshop who is still in Spark consulting, legal consulting, is Eva, only her. The other people involved are not working anymore with Spark. So I don't know why and when, but Eva said by email that they have submitted in the EU Commission the results of this procedure.
Thanks a lot for this information, Victoria, which I think is very important. Yes, I also think that they submitted it, because when we reached out to Spark, and we did reach out, I think, Daniela, was it February, March, so a few months ago, they said that they were about to submit the study to the Commission, right? But the Commission said that then the study will be published at the end of the year. What do we know now? Now we know that they are discussing that. We know that they are discussing the study. We know that it was an agenda point in April, end of April. So they know about the study, and I think they are already running consultations bilaterally with member states, because maybe they already have the study, they are reading it, and they are asking their opinions on whether or not there should be an update on professional qualifications for midwives, right? Hence the urgency, hence why we are holding this webinar today, to make sure that we are all fully briefed and we start engaging with relevant institutional stakeholders as soon as possible, and you will see that in the timeline. So also to reply to your question, who is right now the person, the people to ask for information, is EMP-B5 Unit 1. We can give you the email address. You can also reach out to them. Although we advise to coordinate this outreach, to make sure we all do it in the same way, and we all do it by asking the same thing without overloading the Commission with requests. In terms of advocacy, and I will go through advocacy techniques and tactics and what we need to do a little bit further in the presentation. In terms of advocacy, we need to make sure that we will not become a burden. We need to make sure that we go to the Commission and to member states, and we do not ask for a solution, but we will be the ones giving the solution. That's what we need to do. So we need to go there and say, we know this is the process, we know what's happening, we are representing the midwives, we are representing the midwives, not Spark Consulting, not member states, we are. That's what we think about an update. That's what it should be. Please, there you go. If you have any questions, we can organize some meetings. But we should do that all together to make sure to convey that we are united, that midwives are united, that we all think the same, because otherwise it might weaken our message. So we'll come to this in a moment. So yeah, the actor that you're looking for is AMP B5 Unit 1. If you have any questions, if you want the email address, we can talk after the webinar. For the sake of time, because we only have 30 minutes, voila, questions, I think we replied. Okay, so we were briefly touching upon that. What are our objectives? Our objectives are to embed the essential competencies that we know that are the right ones in the directive framework to make sure that there is no politicization, there is no politics involved there are no games of power, but that actually what is on the update is going to be what midwives think it's important for their job and for the well-being of the people with whom they are working. We want that this update reflects modern healthcare needs, because again, you know best, that's what you do, that's your job. We also want that global standards are aligned and brought forward in the European Union framework to make sure perhaps that also the European Union midwives can be an example and can drive progress in the profession, not only Europe, but also beyond Europe. We want to position ourselves as an expert voice to make sure that in the future, if there will be any other problems, if there will be any other updates, there is no need to look farther than the International Confederation of Midwives, than you, basically, for the Commission to seek for advice, to seek for data. That's what we want to do. And our objective is to drive the directive updates because, again, as I said at the beginning, we have a fundamental, not small problem right now. There is no update planned, not for 2025. So what we are trying to do is to make sure that through our advocacy actions, the Commission decides to put the updates on the agenda for 2026. How are we going to do that? This is a part of the advocacy memo that the Good Lobby wrote for the International Confederation of Midwives. You will receive that. It's very informative. It tells you a little bit about the process, what we did, what we want to do. But as you can see in the left column of the table, there are some dates. Right now, we are in May, June, and it's exactly our attempt to mobilize and to brief, the members. So trying to make you aware of what is happening in order for you to be completely informed and then go forward and perform advocacy actions to make sure to push for an update. So what do the next months ahead look like? They look like pressure. Our objective is to coordinate between you, the International Confederation of Midwives, European Midwives Association in the next months to reach out to competent authorities at the national level with some advocacy documents. You will know what they are in the next slides, to make sure that we present our position to national authorities and try to convince them to push the Commission to realize an update in 2026. We need to convey the urgency for an update of the directive because it's needed. It is to date not reflecting modern and technical standards of midwives. We need to ask your national authorities to tell the Commission that they do want such an update. And we also need to, well, the rotating presidency is something that I will not explain today because we have limited time, but in some, we need to make sure that everybody knows that we are not fine with things as they are right now and that we have the solution. What will happen in June, between June and December 2025, together with you, the International Confederation of Midwives, you see the European Midwives Association, actors at the transnational level, so that overcome the boundaries of the national level. We start engaging with EU institutions. They will start meeting with EU institutions, telling that they have thousands and thousands of midwives that are claiming an update of the directive, and they know what's best for them. And we will just dump those accurate data on their desk, and we'll tell them that this is what we think. This is what we think it should be realized as an update, and we demand an update. This is for 2025. Yes, Daniela, please feel free to complement.
Yeah, just to say that when we do the update, this is a policy process. So we have to look at the policy document, the legislation as it is, and we have to offer them a policy solution. So when we offer them a solution, we offer them an updated text in the format that they have, in the scope that the current text is. So for example, there are things that fit into the scope of the directive, and there are things that don't fit into it. So when we came together as ICM and IMA and FNMA, that's what we did. We created a template that we circulated to all the MAs that was based on the format that already existed. So that's what we would be going forward with now. Now, in the argumentation, why we think we could change, we will of course refer to the essential competencies, to the global standards, and to some of the other European strategies and documents that have come out. But the actual text is actually quite short, and we have to be very careful to remember that we can't expand it very far beyond the scope of what it is now, length and format wise.
Thanks a lot, Daniela. Always on point. To reply to you, Felicite, what is the primary purpose of the Action Plan 2025 as outlined in the document? The purpose is for us, for you, so for the International Confederation of Midwives, for all the members to know at a macro level what we need to do. Oh, hello there. To know what we need to do in 2025 to make sure to have a framework to push for an update. As I said, right now, there is no update. So as of today, the Commission is considering to update the parts related to midwives, but this is not a sure thing. So the primary purpose of this action plan is to have a framework for us and for you to understand what are the actions that we need to perform in 2025 to make sure that an update will be presented by the Commission. Going to scenario number 2, because we always need to think properly and thoroughly about possible end games, and of course there is a say that says if something can go bad, be sure it will be bad. So just to make sure that we are prepared, we also prepared an action plan for 2026. So as I said, what we are trying to do right now is to make sure that we are presenting our data, our position to the national authorities and the European Union authorities to convince them to bring an update of the directive on the table. What if they say no? If they say no, this is what our 2026 will be looking like. What we will do is to realize a campaign to make sure to bring as many people as possible to us and present our situation and ask for people's help to force the Commission and the authorities to bring forward an update of the directive. So as you can see, the first part of the timeline is 2025. You can directly shift your eyes to part 2, which is 2026. What will that look like? It will basically be repackaging all the materials we have around the work that midwives do, how important it is, not only in medical terms, but also in psychological terms, in a lot of different aspects for maternal care and everything, to make sure to develop a story around the job that midwives perform and how important it is that what they do is brought up to date by European Union laws. After that, with this repackaged data, our intention will be to, as I said again, to engage the people, which is in this case will be the only democratically elected institution of the European Union, which is the European Parliament. We will then we have a mapping that we are realizing for the International Confederation of Midwives, which will tell you who all the key people are in all the institutions. So the intention will then be to start engaging these people at the Commission level, at the European Parliament level, at the Council level, to make sure to find somebody that wants to help us in securing an update. After we are leading, so to speak, this pressure to member states, the idea is to raise attention around the issue, right? Because we have to assume that right now nobody knows, because nobody knows, not even nurses, for instance, sometimes know that there is an annex disciplining the training that they need to have to be a nurse. I was talking yesterday to a friend of mine who is a nurse, and he didn't know anything. So we just have to assume that nobody knows anything about that. So we really need to raise attention. We really need to talk to people and say, hey, you know, this is touching you. This is very important because it tells you how you have to do your job and what you need to be able to say that you are doing this job. So you should be involved. You should have a say in that. And basically 2026 will be pressure at the European Parliament level to make sure that relevant committees will be discussing the issue and try and push the Commission for an update in 2027. Now, to go a little bit, yes, I put these arrows, as you can see, Papa. To go a little bit further, why are we doing that? Why were you called to come with us today? Because again, you are our most important advocate. You are at the national level, you know best, you are doing that. If we don't coordinate ourselves, so as I was saying, Victoria, when I was insisting about going together, you know, and talking together, it's because we do need to act coordinated, to look coordinated, and not to look disorganized in front of the institutions. It's only a coherent block of a united voice that can drive the Commission and say, okay, they are like 100+ members. They are representing 1 million midwives. We better listen to these people. They have a point. If we look disorganized, if we all go, you know, if I send an email to the Commission, if Daniela send another email to the Commission, they will just be overloaded and they will, you know, be not prone to help us because they are busy people. Also, the Commission is understaffed, believe it or not. So it is very difficult for them to cope with the amount of work that they have and also to inform relevant stakeholders. So if we manage to give one cable of information and receive another cable of information, the process will be smooth. So an update, again, will be decided in consultation with the member states, which means that we really need you. You are at the member state level. You are our most important advocate. We need you to raise the voice to make sure that when member states are meeting the Commission, they raise the voice and say, we actually need an update there. Again, being at the national level, you are best positioned to access, to engage, to persuade. You are a trusted stakeholder. You engage with these people probably often. They know you, they can trust you. They don't know Gabriele, maybe they don't know Daniela. So we can't basically engage at the national level without having your help, without having your knowledge. This is advocacy is sometimes very delicate, and it also involves a lot of human relations. So we really count on your human relations in these points to make sure that you will be listened. Again, as I said at the beginning, this Committee on Professional Qualifications is composed by delegates of the member states, and each member state has an equal voice and influence the update directly. So we really need you to involve these people, because their support, even one member state, is crucial to make sure not only that we have an update, but that then when the possibility of an update is given, these people know what we want and trust us that what we want is what midwives should have. What will the next weeks look like for you? We are producing a national member briefing where you will receive, first of all, an open letter. Of course, although we are kind of short in time, meaning that ideally we should have started to engage yesterday, but we are doing it tomorrow. But we are still on time. We will still, if you have any suggestions, even in the open letter, or if you think that perhaps we should use a different approach, please feel free to contact me and Daniela. We are more than happy to listen to you, to incorporate your suggestions. So what we thought was also to facilitate your life, because we know that you're busy people. We drafted an open letter which should then be sent to the relevant authorities at the national level, in which we will explain, well, you will explain what is our position, why we think an update is important, what we think the update should contain, why we think it's urgent, and where we ask for a meeting to make sure that we convey the message and we convey the data to these people, and we make sure that you will see in the next slides, we get a commitment. So you will receive a template open letter, a position paper, which outlines our position, and this can all be given to the national authorities to make sure they also have something to read, to work on. The advocacy memo, of which you just saw a little piece of the table, to make sure that you always have an eye on the strategy, and then a series of small steps and advices to follow, which again, you are very easy to follow or not to follow. The only emphasis that I want to put here is to coordinate yourself. Make sure to talk to each other, to do this together, and not to go solo. Again, as I just said, we need to aim for commitment, which means that our objective is to send this email, to send this open letter, to send this position paper, to make sure that in the first case, we get a meeting. So we get a commitment from the relevant ministry, from the relevant politician who's taking care of that. After we get a meeting, commitment number 2 is a follow-up. So you presented the data, you presented the position paper, you have a person that is sympathetic to your cause. They say, all right, I want to be committed. I will make sure to tell the commission that we do want an update. Do not leave the meeting like that. You need to leave the meeting with a clear commitment. So, all right, thanks a lot. We will appreciate that. When can I follow up? When are we going to meet again? How can I help you? Can I be present in the meetings with you? Do you need anything else from me? Make sure to always have a part 2. Do not leave them at part 1. These are busy people. These are people that are engaged by a lot of different stakeholders. We need to make sure for each and one of them that we have a commitment. Okay, you read the paper, you liked it, you agree with us. Can we meet on Tuesday? If not on Tuesday, can we meet in the coming weeks? Please tell me and I will be happy to adapt. That's what we need to do. We need to make sure that they commit, that they say, yes, we are going to help you, but also how they are going to help us. So it's not an open question. It's, are you going to help us? That's the wrong question. The question is, we need your help. Are you going to do it? And if yes, how are you going to do it? And how can I make sure to help you during this process? So commitment, commitment, commitment. Yeah, it is. That's all on my side in terms of content. I'm aware that this was a lot. So in the spirit of collaboration, before opening the Q&A, I briefly want to ask Daniela whether, Daniela, there is something that you want to say to complement.
I think, yeah, just to reiterate the fact that it's really critical that we speak with as we find what we can agree on, and we try and speak with one voice as much as possible, and that it's also important that we coordinate the national advocacy and the higher level advocacy as much as possible. So at this point, we've been doing a lot of information gathering. There hasn't been a lot of direct advocacy to any of the stakeholders, just because the situation has been so complex with the with is the report done? Has it been submitted? When will it be public? All these things have been in the air. And also, when we were in Brussels last year, we were told that this would be on the Commission's roster for the end of 2025, but we soon realized that that wouldn't happen, and we're hoping it will be in 2026. So we're still figuring that out, and we're looking to give you the tools that you can use, similarly to the way we did after the workshop in Brussels, as a way to help you with your advocacy. Of course, there's going to need to be some adaptation for different national contexts, but we want to give you as many tools as possible, and those will come through over the next few weeks. That's it from me.
Thanks a lot, Daniela. Please, Victoria.
Thank you very much for this very important discussion. I want to say that as a European Midwives Association, we have a long relationship with the European Commission and we are a transparent stakeholder for many, many years. So in this field, we have been invited in different events from the European Commission and other partners like last week I was in the EU Demographic Summit. So there are many different EU policies that are linked with our EU directives. So it is very important to have this up because it will help us in our advocating actions. So if we link specific updates that we need to be done in the EU directives with EU documents that are now that have been voted by the EU Parliament, this will also evidence by EU policy documents what we need to be changed. And this is something that EU Commission has to follow because this is EU policy document that they have to follow as EU Commission. So I think that we should base our discussion on these EU policy documents because this will be more, they will hear us, is my thought. And because we will have the president of the EU Parliament in our opening in our European Education Conference in Malta, I think it's a very important momentum for us to lobby and to advance these procedures so that we will be heard. Thank you very much for this important discussion. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Victoria, for this very, very useful input. And I think also Daniela will unite with me in saying that we completely agree with you. So again, our intention since the beginning was not to, show ourselves disunited or alone, but to show them that we are united, that we agree on what we want to do. And in this regard, as you say, this will be a great advocacy point. So I replied to you in the chat. I will be happy with Daniela to discuss this in the coming weeks to make sure to already start passing the right message. And of course, our intention is then to further discuss to make sure that you, Daniela, and whoever can join in Brussels can go and meet stakeholders at the European Union level from September onwards. So yes, absolutely. Let's make sure to stay in touch after today. It's question time. So are there any questions right now? Please feel free. I know that I discussed a lot. I said a lot. There is a lot that perhaps can sound complicated right now. So if you're searching for any clarifications, this is the moment. We have 15 minutes. And don't be shy. All questions are useful. There are no useless questions.
Maybe I can start as people are thinking of their questions. Can you give us a bit of an idea of who the national stakeholders would be for this work?
Yes. Usually, we are talking about people working in the ministries, civil servants. Again, the directive as an employment connotation, as well as education, as well as health. This makes it very complicated because while the directive is fundamentally a directive that takes care of something regarding employment, it is about healthcare professionals. So of course, the health component makes it difficult to understand. I saw the results of the survey. A lot of members were able to identify the relevant people. Some of them were part of the health ministry. Some of them were part of the employment ministry. So we're talking about people working in the ministries for sure, or if there are specific agencies that are pertinent to these topics, it's going to be the agency. But the ministry, it's always going to be involved in any case. So we're talking about ministries here. If there are no more questions, maybe we can go for, yes, Daniela?
I had another one. Hold on, just going back. Maybe you can say a little bit about so in the chat, Murphy was commenting that in the previous iteration in the last update before this one, two countries, very surprisingly, Austria and Germany, were the ones who were very vocal against the updates that EMA was suggesting. Do you have any suggestions for how we can approach the national governments and like, should we talk to them in a way that this is a political update, or should we talk to them and that this is very technical and very, yeah, what kind of a discussion should we have with them?
Yeah, definitely. We should have a technical discussion because simply we are not politicians, right? We do not want this to be political. We want this to be technical because at the technical level, we know best and they do not. They are politicians. They are not tautologists, if it's even an English word. They cannot know everything. They cannot know the technicalities. So we need to make sure to have the knife from the handle, in our hands. So to make sure that we conduct the conversation in a way that make sure that gives us an advantage. We know the technicalities. At a political level, it's going to be very difficult to argue with them because they are politicians. They know, and surely they will find ways to dismiss what we are saying. So the discussion should be approached purely from a technical perspective. And of course, going to the more fundamental question, how do we make sure to bring them to our side? Well, that's a bit on a case-to-case basis, right? These are not monoliths. These are member states. It means that perhaps Germany and Austria have a different position. We don't know how they are reasoning. We need to understand what they want and to find a middle common ground to make sure that we find something that is acceptable to us, but also acceptable to them. Liz.
Yes, and thank you so much for this presentation. It's very difficult and but very important. So maybe I misunderstand something, but I try. As I hear you saying, the political part is about the length of the education, and the technical part is what is in the education, and what we have the possibility to put on through Spark. The Spark survey was only the technical part. What is the content of the education? And my concern is this, that if we want to put more things into the education, then it could be so that we end up having an education that it's make even more difficult to become a midwife because we want so much more into the education. So that's just one point. And then I just want to have this attention to this workforce issue. In Denmark, we have a reduce of our education length of the reduction of the length of the education, and the whole issue is the workforce. They need more healthcare workers. So I just want to know the thoughts of that. I mean, what is the interest from the EU Commission to maybe make a higher quality of the education, because that challenged the workforce issue. But that's what our point is, that we want a higher quality of the education. So that's one part. And then the question I put into the chat is that I know that they have been to a similar process with the nurses, and as I have told, they were starting in 19 and ended in 22, 20, 23 or 24 even though. So it's a long process, and they as I told, they was very pleased. They got some more issues into more subject into the education, but the length of the education is the same. So it's just some thoughts. Maybe you can't answer it, but I think this is very difficult.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Liz. Very nice observations. First thing is that length of education is also technical. It's not political. So
Okay.
length of education can also be included in the technicalities. What I meant for political, the examples that I made at the beginning are the scope, for instance, of the piece of law, the procedures to amend, to check on this piece of law, but everything that regards training and educations of the midwives, this is purely technical. Why? Because education is not a European Union competence. It's a member state competence. which means that everything that regards education, what kind of trainings the midwives or architects or I don't know, dentists should have, how long school should be in general. These are all things that are decided at the member state level. What then the Commission does is try to coordinate all those different frameworks to make sure that at the end of the day, if I am Italian, but then I migrate to Denmark, it is not so difficult, right? So it's actually standardized. So they have a coordinating role. Also to reply to Christina Hess, ministries from the national level are basically the stakeholders that are involved to decide whether there will be an update or not. For as of now, the European Parliament is not in our interest because they are not going to be involved in that. They will be involved only when the update is realized, the articles, the amendments are formulated, and then the European Parliament and the Council, they will have 2 months of time to say, yes, we agree, no, we don't agree. That's it.
Just 1 second, Gabriela, just to clarify something. So we've been told this whole process that the length of education, which is the first part of the as I apologize, I don't remember the exact, I think it's 44.1, is not part of this update. So that's not something we can talk about at all. But the technical aspect, which is what the content of that education is. And now you just went and you said it the other way. Sorry, you said that the education length was up for discussion.
No, I didn't say it was up for discussion. I said that education length, it's something technical that can also be updated in a technical way. So perhaps if
But not in this one, because this isn't the subject of the.
Yeah, perhaps their consideration is that the length is okay like that, and so we're not gonna touch it because there are other things that need to be updated before. So they said we are excluding it, but they didn't say we cannot update it. They're saying we are excluding it. So if you think that, for instance, length should also be updated, it is up for discussion actually, because length it's in one of the parts that in which the Commission has delegated powers. Yes, Victoria.
EU Commission has sent last year, this time of the year, a survey for us to be completed as European Midwives Association. So we had a web meeting with all the member states, and by voting, we answered these questions. We didn't do it as ourselves as board because we want all the member states to reflect what are their opinions about this. So they wanted that by August last year. So one of the questions was about the length. So they are also discussing the length of the studies. But as Elise has said, we as majority decided that we don't agree to have lower length of the duration of the studies. On the opposite, we propose to have a longer length of the studies, of the midwifery studies. So this is what a stakeholder European Midwives Association has submitted. But there are EU documents about the duration of the European studies, not for midwives, but for all the educational, procedures in EU countries. So these are specific documents. They have been updated. So we have also to mention these documents. So, for example, it says that you have to have at least 3 years for a bachelor degree and 5 years for a master degree. So this is also another discussion that we should have, if midwifery should be on a master level, on a bachelor level. So this is the minimum, of course, the minimum. It is not if a member states like Greece is 4 years, all the studies of midwives. So, or maybe in other states may be longer, like France, but the minimum is 3 years. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Just to say also, one of the ways, as Victoria quite rightly pointed out, the minimum is 3 years. And at this point, it doesn't seem like that's something that's up for discussion in this particular update. However, if we manage to get an update through in the technical aspects and the list of the minimum that a midwife should have in her educational training is longer, this is then an advocacy tool that MAs can take to their national governments and say, look, this is what the EU is saying is the minimum. It doesn't fit in the number of hours that we have currently in this program, and we need to update it. So there's different ways of, if we say yes to this, and so let's say, for example, we leave the 3 years because that's not part of this process. We update the second section, which is Annex 4 or 5. We update that, and then once that's updated, member states have a certain number of years to implement it. And that's when the national associations and the educators can go back to the governments and say, look, this is not going to fit in 2,300 hours. We need to increase it to whatever you decide at that point. So I think there's a bit of advocacy that can go in both ways, and it definitely is a tool for countries like Denmark that are working to that are trying to shorten the education while the midwives are saying that we can't shorten it.
Thanks a lot, Daniela. Mervi, you had a question?
Yeah. No, not really a question. Actually, Daniela covered a lot of what I was going to say. Sorry, my camera is just playing up. It's a wrong angle in my house.
No problem.
Issue is really exactly when we were discussing on the modernization, would it be 3 years, 4 years, or whatever requirements for midwifery? Our fight really was more of trying to get it to the level of degree for midwives instead of the same to the nurses. And fortunately, depending on how member states read the articles, we were successful on that, and that's what supported Germany actually being able to advance their courses into degree level. So the 3 years is the minimum, but this is where we are now. Many of the member states are discussing, is 3 years actually enough to reach the competencies we expect from a midwife for autonomous practice if we are taking into consideration the ICM competencies and the role as it is, or the scope of practice that are expected to take the role forward. That's why there's such a variation between member states on 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and even France thinking about 6. So our issue is that if we get the essential, what we think the minimum into the Annex 5, we have then a role in the member states to discuss how long would the education course be, because Liz raised an important point, which is how much can you fit into 3 years if you are actually going to get the proficiency on the scope of practice that you're expected on qualification. So yes, it's a starting point. We won't be able to change the 3 years except if there's a major overhaul on the articles, but we will be able to get a body of education which actually may require thinking in member states of how long the education would be, and that's a different step. That's the next step, if you see what I mean. But it is to make sure that we actually get the right competencies, proficiencies, whatever you're going to call, into the Annex 5 now to ensure that the midwives can be more supportive of practice autonomously.
Yeah, and that's actually an excellent point, Mervy, and it reminded me of one more thing. If we manage to get through this update, a better list of the content, the minimum content, then in a next iteration, we can come back and say, okay, now we need to rediscuss the minimum 3 years. So it is a bit of kind of a tiered approach to the advocacy. At this point right now, my feeling is that many countries would be against a discussion, even though it's not part of the update. Many countries would probably be against increasing the minimum length. But in a later iteration, if we do manage to increase the part of the update that we want to do now, and we have a lot of discussions in the member states, and they start increasing the length of their studies, then we have a much stronger argument in the next iteration of the update to deal with that particular aspect of the directive.
Yeah, I think we need to be very, very strong together. That what
Yeah.
Liz mentioned, there is quite a big drive in some countries to reduce the length of the education program, and I think that is something what definitely we have a strong position on the nurses to the point that it needs to be a degree level, and most of the degree level courses are always are already based on a different rules of education, you know, directive. So. Interesting point. Yeah, I think that will be the next stage of our life in Europe as regarding thinking about together how long the education does really take.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And mindful of time, I think that we can move to closing remarks with in a good mood, because I see that you're all willing to engage, that you're all happy about we convening together and then trying to do something positive. So I think that today we can take it as a starting point of what will be few months together to try and bring these updates to the table. So again, just to have a quick review of what we did and what will happen. In terms of next steps, you will soon receive this briefing, which will more or less summarize what we discussed today. So the situation, the timeline, what we are expecting to do in the next months. You received a survey in which we asked you to identify the competent authorities at the national level that will be in charge of a possible update. Please do start preparing to reach out to these national authorities. Start understanding who they are. Start finding their email address. Start preparing what you are going to say. And in all of that, of course, please, Daniel, allow me to say that if they need anything, of course, they are free to come to you and ask for help or anything. Keep an eye on campaign materials and messaging tools to support your local advocacy efforts. So make sure that if there is something that can be said on what we're trying to do, it will be said at the social media level. And then stay connected with Daniela for all the updates. Guidance and support are, of course, a given. Whatever thing you might need, we will be happy to provide it if we can. And in terms of closing remarks, again, we are in a situation in which right now this is not a reality. We need to be proactive. We need to be coordinated, just to make sure that this issue will be brought into the agenda, because right now it is not. We are very strong. Well, you are very strong. Allow me to say we. It's a few months that I've had the pleasure to be working with Daniela to support your cause, which I think it's important for everybody. We are very strong. We have technical knowledge. We have numbers. We know what we want. This is one of the first things that I said to Daniela when she presented me the case. I said, this is really wonderful. I have rarely met people wanting to do advocacy and being so clear on what they want. So we really have a lot of positive things that can help us along the way to put this update into the agenda. Only together we can influence the institutions, we can mobilize the governments, we can raise public awareness, not scattered by together. And let's make sure that all these talks, all this strategy, all this knowledge that we have, it's translated into concrete action, and that we will get these updates on the agenda for the sake of midwives. I want to thank you a lot and very much for bearing with me for 1 hour and a half. I understand it was very intense. As Daniela said, you will receive the recording. You will also be receiving the slides. But if you have any questions, you have my email in the last slide of this presentation. But also feel free to ask my email to Daniela or to contact Daniela, and Daniela will forward me the email. Happy to have a small talk if needed. again, Daniela, I will leave it to you for your closing remarks. But on my side, thanks a lot for being here. It is a pleasure, and let's get these updates together on the agenda.
Thank you, Gabriela. It really has been an interesting process over the last, I think it's about 9 months now that we've been working on this intensely. And it's been a pleasure collaborating with all the European umbrella organizations like EMA and FNMA, but also working together with our members, many of which are shared across the 3 organizations, with a shared vision for the improvement of midwifery step by step across the European Union. I know that different countries are facing different challenges. There's challenges with length of education, quality of education, faculty development. There's challenges with cross-border collaboration, midwives moving from one country to another and not being able to practice in that country because even though there is a minimum standard, the minimum is too low. So I really look forward to the next year, it looks like, working on continuing to advocate for this work, but also to strengthen all of us in our advocacy efforts. And thank you, Gabriela and the Good Lobby, for helping us understand the very complex world of European bureaucracy, which I sometimes feel like I understand, and other days I realize I know nothing. So if many of you are feeling in a similar way that the EU is very complicated, it is. But I think this is a good process for us to learn a little bit about the decision making that affects our lives and our profession every day. And in a step-by-step way, hold each other's hands and support each other through a process that's complex. But I think that together we'll get through it, and we will get at least some updates to the directive that then colleagues can build on in 10 years when the next update is up for discussion. So thank you again, everybody, for joining. We will send materials afterwards. Please do reach out to Gabriela or ICM with any questions that you may have, and we will aim to support you as much as possible with materials, information, templates, and whatnot. And if there's anything that you need, please do let us know, and we'll try and develop it. And we'll also try and work out a way of making keeping a record of the advocacy that you're doing nationally, so that we can create a larger map and share amongst ourselves what's working as advocacy efforts. So thank you again for joining us. It was a pleasure, and it was lovely seeing you.
Thanks, Danielle. Thanks,
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.